with, which was, I don't know, maybe if you didn't think of adoption as involving trauma before watching it, if anyone wants to share how their perspective might have changed after watching it or not, I'm interested in talking about that.
I'd be curious, Rebecca and Amy, if non-adoptees could use the reaction thing and raise their hand.
That's good.
I recognize
Love it.
many people in here, but some I don't. So I'd be curious to know who are not actual adoptees.
Who are or who aren't? Did you say?
Well, either way, we can do it either way.
So if you are an adoptee, could you please either physically raise your hand or raise your hand in reaction button?
Because I'm saying that sort of in connection with Rebecca's, what she just said about knowing non-adoptees' perspective on this.
Thank you. There are at least 4 here. And
So mostly non-adopt. Wait, which did we do? We did adoptees. Yeah.
adoptees, yes. So,
that's
and
awesome.
thank you for bringing that up, because I'm sure that we really do want to hear from that group almost more than any other group what this has been like and how this has really impacted your experience. So if anybody would share, that would be amazing.
And I am currently reading Gabor Mate's latest book, The Myth of Normal. So I've been thinking about trauma. I'm not a trauma expert at all, but how many little t traumas adoptees have been born into, and that might have come from a place where we don't really have a pre-verbal self to go back to heal, like a lot of people talk about in healing trauma. So that's something, a new thought that I've had recently, and just thinking about things that you didn't consent to. Like even today, I was talking to an adoptee who was raised in another religion. I don't know, and how thinking about that now, it's like, is confusing, and just there's things throughout our lives that pop up that you never consider, or that parents don't consider either, because you wouldn't if it's kind of the blank slate mentality. But
I just was having a conversation with a friend this morning about adoption in the short Cliff Note version of it, of something I didn't recognize as an adoptee myself until I had children, losing growing up in a very Italian family, and having my own children, I was like, wow, that's something I can't even I can't even say the word, ethnically pass on to them, because I was never taught it.
yes, that. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
There was a part that I thought must be really resonant when you talk about what would my life have been like if I didn't get it. I don't know how you put it really beautifully about, this is not the life that I would have had or intended, and thinking about that piece. I know some of the pieces with Jill, like her love of music and your love of music, and watching you with her and the siblings, like it's
Yeah. And that's always been such a my family they didn't raise me to love music. And I think I overheard my dad say on the phone once to someone that he didn't listen to music. And I own a small record label, and it's so easy for my biological siblings to just start jamming, and my husband. And so they'll start jamming when we're all together, and I feel like I don't feel that joy that they seem to just immediately have. And I hate that. And I don't know if that's depression or, not being raised with, they were all raised to do that. and
I'm sure
encouraged
that's
to play
trigger.
music.
That sounds like it would really be a huge trigger for the reminding you of the loss and the trauma. Like, not surprising, really.
But the few times that I do jump on the piano and try, it's been nice, but it's been a handful of times because I usually don't feel capable of doing that, which, still unpacking a lot too. But thinking about trauma, I'm glad you asked me to do this because I haven't thought of it in that lens. But then when you do start thinking about abandonment and loss and rejection and trust and betrayal, like with the box, and that really sent me spinning for like 2 weeks when I did think the box existed. I thought it was in the attic. That's sort of said in the credits until they came out and told me they threw it away when we moved. So they were withholding information still because they knew it would be bad if the truth came out and assumed it wouldn't. And this is what a lot of late discovery adoptees have to deal with and grapple with, learning they were adopted later in life. And so this isn't the same, but it's a lot of adoption stories involve one bit of information that was withheld, and it can trigger a lot of betrayal and trust issues, even when you think you're past that. Because I thought, oh, I always knew I was adopted. I was always told, so that's the worst it can be. But then you're like, whoa, that's not the only bit of information that could be withheld from you. And that's, so these people you trusted your entire life and were your safekeepers, you want to believe, I don't know. It's not their fault completely because they were told not to tell me about the box. Like the social worker says she gave it to them and thought that they would tell me. But then if you ask my parents, they'll say, no, she said we didn't have to give it to you. So everyone's hearing what they want to hear and thinking they're right and doing what's right. So it's hard to like pinpoint the complete adversary, but I think we can all agree that maybe agencies could have done a little better. That's what I'm hoping happens. I don't know.
I think that's huge too, right? Like there's so many different perspectives on this issue. And as you said, through the film, we really put the adoptive parents' perspective front and center and didn't necessarily think about adoptees' experience until they're adults. And just some of those pieces were really striking. The sort of, you're always a kid, no matter how old you get, the sort of space between giving birth and where you landed in the family, all that stuff. And it is easy to see, you know, the audience for Trauma Training Tuesday is pretty familiar with how trauma triggers and watching people manage those. And that's clearly something you're seeing all the time. This film and you talking about this triggers people, and they behave in ways that you don't really expect them, and it's triggering for you and for many of us in the audience for whatever situation. And you know, that's what it is. Feelings come up that you just didn't expect, or you didn't see that they were there. But
Yeah.
please, I don't want to monopolize, and I see Bill has his hand up.
Great.
Jump in.
Yeah, Rebecca, the really amazing movie or film. Thank you very much for bringing it. And I definitely learned a lot of things. I'm pretty open-minded to begin with, so I wasn't really surprised by anything, but I really appreciated the information. Something you said just brought up a question in my head. With all the work that you're doing to support folks who are now or are now finding out they're adopted, how much have you or other folks been working with like current adoption agencies or I should say adoption cultures and foster cultures to try to change that from this point moving forward? So I'm a big fan of like when you educate people about something, then that's when we can all kind of see some substantial change, you know, in anything around the world.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. And the movie just came out, so I am trying. I would love to work with more agencies and child welfare organizations And I just heard from someone today on Instagram who's been sharing it and just watched it today or yesterday. And she works with agencies, but she's a birth mother. So I'm really interested to see where that goes. And then there's a conference coming up in Georgia that I think a lot of the agencies are going to attend, but they're going to screen the film, because that's my dream, is to get, and also possibly like a mega church, which would be another space I would love to screen the film, because yeah, I think a lot of people might, I want to see what the reaction is, and if we can.
And Bill, I can sort of add on to that. A lot of adult adoptees have found their voices as Rebecca, and we are tackling this different ways. Meaning Rebecca has done it this way. I personally have a friend who works in that industry and have been speaking with her behind the scene, which just dawned on me, Rebecca, I need to talk to her about this film. But great question, because we definitely have found our voices and are trying to get the education and awareness out there.
But we're still kind of infantilized just as a group, so it's hard to be listened to. It's I think that's why people gravitated towards Nancy as an adoptive parent, and it sucks that that's who gets listened to the most. So I love thinking about that. And then, like Cindy's saying, we're finding our voices. It's taken a minute, but there is traction, and there's also tension just where we are in the world, with a lot of things being reckoned with, that I'm hopeful. So
sure. Well,
have any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, I happen to be working with an organization I was just introduced to a few, maybe 6 months ago now. We're working on police reform, but one of the biggest things that we're doing is reaching out to those organizations and cultures and things around the country, to try to do what you just said, like going to a very large church and say screening the film and things like that. We're doing those exact same things now, so I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and let you pick my brain and give you as much information as I can about how because we're being really successful with it.
Oh, it's working.
Yeah,
wow.
It's really great way to get across to people across the country and around the world.
Okay, yes, please, let's talk.
Beautiful. John, go ahead and jump in. I see you have your hand up, and Kelly as well. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to share what I got from the film and what it helped me to understand much better. My mother was informally adopted by her grandmother, and she never really knew her mother. She knew of her, and she might have met her once, but her mother was totally out of her life. And so what your film really helped me to understand is the trauma that all of those people felt in all their ways. My mother's mother, my mother, her grandmother, and me. I was an NPE, and I recently found out within the past couple of years that I did not belong to my dad. And I think my mother and me had this kind of understanding, this connection that I could not ever articulate, because I didn't know any of this kind of stuff. But I had the same kind of feelings that those adoptees were talking about, feelings of disconnection, of alienation, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because I had this family that was around and I looked enough alike them. So it's like, what's wrong with me was the question. But once I put all of this together, and this is helping me also, is that my experience was actually a normal response to an abnormal situation. There was really nothing wrong with me, although the secrets was what made it more difficult for me, because it was that feeling of being kind of manipulated and coerced, like to believe this. And I didn't find out till long after my parents had passed away. And I have to say that the stress and the trauma that my mother went through probably caused her physical health issues. She smoked, she drank, She died at only age 61. She was a mess. And she put all of the stuff in the closet. She never talked about, I never heard her talk about her mother at all, ever, or being adopted. So I think it's physically harmful to not talk about it. I think holding this all in had caused her to not be able to process any of this stuff. And I think it caused a lot of actual physical health problems for her. So thank you so much.
What Gabor Mate says in the Myth of Normal too, which I've only read 50 pages of it, but it is suppressing emotions is very bad for your health. And there's studies where nurses can be like, this person's too nice, I'm sure they have this, and they're like right 94% of the time.
Thank you. I have to leave now, but I just want to thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye now.
Kelly, jump on in. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're muted.
Oops. Yeah, sorry. I just took myself off mute and put myself on video. Yeah, thanks so much for the film, Rebecca. I loved it. This is probably my third or fourth time watching it online. I'm an adoptee and born in the same era as
online,
you.
I think.
Yeah. So I so resonate with the film and wanted to just thank you for the work you're doing. And I didn't know if there were any updates in terms of when it might be available on streaming services too. So I wanted to ask you that if there were any updates. And, you know, just one note about the film, like I wish I could share it with all of my biological family members that I'm in reunion with, which is not that many so far, just a few, and my adoptive family. But I feel like my adoptive parents aren't even ready to be able to view a film like this, even though I think they need to see it.
Neither
it's
are
just
mine.
that adoptive parent fragility, right? It's just so, it's such a big topic. Anyway.
They're in it and they won't watch it again.
Can't even handle it.
I hear you. It's not like streaming on Netflix or anything because I don't know. Netflix wanted to reshoot it, and anyways, it's on Vimeo. So
I
it's
linked
easy.
it in the chat even.
Yeah.
I put the link in the chat, and the link is Reckoning with the Primal Wound, right? .com. And
and if you want to gift it to a lot of people, I can make a promo code to make it not,
nice.
as expensive, but just let me know. And I'm glad we're able to do this free pop-up screening. If like anyone has issues with the price of the film and wants to gift it, we've figured out ways to do that like across the board. And I also but since I'm an independent filmmaker and didn't get like a deal, I'm struggling to cover operation costs. So keep that in mind, but also I give 10% every month back to adoptees in the community for self-care. And that's kind of my lobby, if I can figure out a way to lobby the government for self-care funds for adoptees. But for now, I will gift self-care funds myself. But thanks for asking about that. Hey, it's Lauren.
Lauren.
Hi, I just wanted to kind of put a button on bringing it back to like the question of trauma, which you asked before people watch the film, like how many people recognize adoption as trauma. And then watching the film, and I love that there's so many people in this forum right now that are not adoptees, that are coming in for different purposes to learn more about this subject and about this community. And I always, every time I watch the film, I've watched the film a bunch, I'm a friend of Rebecca's, but I always go back to that really great moment that David has when he talks about the percentage of adoptees that are searching. And I feel like that resonates with trauma as well. You know, you think like, when you think about the percentage of adoptees that are searching, you think about them going and paying for a DNA test, or that are like trying to obtain their records. Like, you don't think about the emotional toll that adoption takes on the child, and how from their earliest memories, they're searching for that biology, even if they're not actually searching for the biological parents, they are searching for that emotionally and mentally. So, and, you know, and to like live that experience, that in itself is a trauma. And just, you know, I think that's such a powerful moment in the film, because I think it really helps people understand that it's not just like this one adoptee wants to go find his biological family. It's not just like those like TLC shows where they're like, find your long lost loved one. It's not just that. It's everything. It's the lived experience of the adoptee and the little T's, the little traumas and that manifest. And, you know, so I appreciate this screening, and I'm glad that people are talking about it and getting to see the film.
Thank you, Lauren. We were talking about like marketing and operational costs. Lauren's like my right-hand person helping with that. So it's basically just us.
That's awesome. And I agree. We really want child welfare people, especially. I know that, you know, that my audience often has people that are working with kids and child welfare, and, you know, hoping that this gets to that audience, and just so appreciative that you are doing this on a shoestring on your own, just as a labor of love. And there's no way it won't grow and take off, because it's truth and it's important. And if we can help that in any way, we're thrilled to be able to.
Our main mission is to prevent pain and suffering, which is way too much for adoptees, former foster youth. I mean, even NPEs and donor conceived and surrogacy born people are having these issues that need to be addressed, like the disenfranchised grief. I love that topic, and I see that language now some, and I wonder if it's from the film. I don't know, but I think it's a huge thing to talk about that David presents.
It's definitely making it into more, you know, sort of mainstream circles. I think disenfranchised grief came up a lot through COVID too, that people went through loss after loss without really getting to go through the process of grieving with other people and talking about it and services and
I never heard it until he said it, and it's like, I think everyone can probably relate to this. We need to pause and do something. Grieve, maybe.
Rebecca, yeah. I also think it's getting the narrative out to the general public that adoption is not the rainbows and unicorn narrative that it's constantly being portrayed as, you know, and also calling out CPS and making the public aware that states receive money for every child adopted out of foster care. You know, it's turning over all these stones and making people aware of the realities of adoption.
Yes. Yeah, good point. And there are so many people, so many activists in the space like Cindy who are doing just that. So I think collectively it is rising. And I appreciate you bringing the film and this message into your community. And I'm so happy to talk to anyone after this who has ideas, like Bill was saying.
That would be great. And so what's the best way for people to get in touch with you then? Just find you on
I'm everywhere under Reckoning with the Primal Wound, but it's reckoningwiththeprimalwound@gmail.com as well. If you want to email me, I can put it in here.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it is so appreciated, all the sort of things that were raised. And I know other people that are in the audience here today that aren't adoptees, but I'm sure found lots of things that really resonated in that film. You did such a comprehensive look at the experience and from multiple viewpoints. And it's really important, you know, like not to go down that whole path, but the post Roe versus Wade world we're living in, adoption is put out like it's some answer that hurts no one. You know, when we're talking about women not wanting to be moms for any reason, we act like this is some, you know, oh, you can just adopt or give the child up. And you really showed us that nobody escapes that unscathed, that, right? Like, I appreciated that part too, that Jill was so willing to talk about how hard it was for her and how hurtful. And hopefully times are really changing now because they have to. But there were a lot of really, some of the narratives you were sort of victimized by in the adoption world need to change. They're still, it's a murky space. And I really think you helping us to see our way clear in this space is so appreciated and valued.
Thanks. And I tried to put more voices in there. So like Sierra Watts is a first mother, and that's a recent story, but she like, it was an open adoption, but those aren't legally binding. So they moved states, you know, people she adopted her son to, and she lost track of him. And it's this whole sad story now, but that was like 9 years ago. So it's not too far in the past, but there's all these people that I wanted to give like the mic to that have more of their stories online, you know, and they have platforms. So my hope is to elevate and tell more stories. And that's why the credits, if anyone does watch it, have the Adoptee Army, and it has over 1,000 names of people who agree with the message, and it's not just adoptees. So there's allies, there's adoptive parents, and there are first parents. So I think that's
I loved, Rebecca, the screening where Jill came on for the Q&A. And I made it a point to personally tell her how much I appreciated hearing her voice in I can't talk today at all, and figures you're recording this one. But one of the first adoption books that I read was The Girls That Went Away. And it's from the birth parent perspective. And it was something that I had never thought about. So I so enjoyed hearing Jill and being able to tell her, you know, how appreciative actually hearing from a birth mother was. So I love when she comes on for the Q&As, because that's something we also forget about. I know darn well my birth mother has most likely not dealt with her trauma.
Yeah.
So we forget about their trauma as well. So I'm glad that her voice is in there.
Thanks. Me too. Yeah, I think that's one of the things. I don't know why I was the one that was able to put this story together the way I did, and it's resonating the way it is. But I think Jill's story needed to be told, and it just happened. I don't know. Like divine intervention. That's what I say.
Yes.
This is my destiny. I'm not doing it for any reason except to like hopefully prevent pain and suffering. And I'm really glad that people like it, but I didn't expect them to. I've never.
We need to just get Nancy to come to a Q&A.
Yeah, it's happened before. It might happen again. Who knows?
Yeah.
It is really obvious that that's what you're doing, and we're just so grateful for it. It must be divinely green lighted, because it's important. Anytime you help people with alleviate pain and suffering, that's my version of God, like helping other people connect and feel less alone and feel seen and heard. And you doing that is really magical. And we're so grateful because it's clear that people are. And I love hearing from Cindy and that they do this every few months, offer a screening. and, you know, people here that are in position to connect with Rebecca, Autumn, and maybe set up some other ways to get the word out. It's very appreciated. And we are already past time, and I know we probably could talk for hours if we open the door to that.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah,
anyone
that's
has
why I love these, is because
thoughts,
it's hard to end them, and I always learn something new, and I appreciate everybody who shared and that came out in the middle of the day. But you do this regularly, so
yeah, right. It is like a shared passion to just help people understand how trauma might be showing up in their life, and, you know, connecting them with ways to heal, because there's not enough of that. You really, I think, highlighted, we have a lot of really significant cultural problems in dealing with emotional health, mental health, all of these issues. We don't do a good job in general of supporting people through trauma or helping alleviate trauma. The part where you do show the border stuff, like, is just so painful to see. State sanctioned trauma.
I know I couldn't help it. I was like, yeah, this is painful to watch, but it's such.
We need to.
Dang.
Yeah, we're right there with you that things have to change. And the only way they are going to change is if people see it. That when you hide things, it's really hard to build community around hidden identities, hidden situations. So just bringing it to the surface is huge.
Yes.
I want to add, Amy, real quick. This is, I don't know what, Rebecca, my 5th, 6th time that I've watched it. And it's always different because Rebecca keeps adding content. So it's an ever-changing project. And also, I know it's very important for her that money not be an issue for people who are unable to watch it. I know this last time when High Earth Hope and Healing hosted a viewing, I always put that in the post, and I can't tell you how many people reached out to me saying, I'm willing to donate 5 tickets, or I can help. So don't, you know, if you share this link, please know that money is never an issue. Rebecca really wants people, and me, want people to see this film.
Yes. Thank you, Cindy. And that happens when I do it too. So that's cool. I didn't know that you got that many. But when I say that, there's been equal, like people who need to watch it and people who are giving tickets. So again, another divine intervention thing.
Is there a way to do that on your site, Rebecca? If I know, you know, you had a GoFundMe way back, but if people want to give money to the cause, is that?
Yeah, I can put that back. I think I took it down, but I've had a PayPal. So it was like, if you wanted to,
Oh,
I should
great.
do that again. Yeah, because I kind of did it for just a month and then it worked. And I should do it again and be like, now I
You
have.
should. I think people, you know, people would like to just support you. This is
I can
amazing.
give out promo
Okay.
codes. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. And they go. So I think that's a way to get the word out. Thank you for bringing that up, Cindy.
All right. Well, I guess we can, if hearing nothing else, we will end our Zoom with our deepest love and gratitude. And please check out Rebecca's work wherever you can. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for this really important labor of love that you have undertaken. Much
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate everything you're doing too. And thanks for being here. Reach out if you want.
Thank you all.